Hi, it's Kristen, and this week on our 10 to 20 Talk Radio podcast, I've got one of our frequent writers, Doreen Morin Van Dam, and Doreen and I decided that the topic of kids and social media and technology was a very appropriate one. It's one that a lot of parents have a lot of questions about. Ironically, it ended up being a little bit different, and what we started talking about was how schools and technology can affect parenting, such as if your kids' schools have required bring your own devices, how do you punish them if you need to take away those devices during the day? So I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for being here, and let's get started. Hi, everybody. This is Kristen Dokas. Welcome to this week's edition of 10 to 20 Talk Radio. Today, I am speaking with one of our contributors, Doreen Morin Van Dam. And Doreen and I've decided, after a little bit of a conversation, that we think a really good topic that parents need to hear more on is the pros and cons of tweens on technology. Doreen, one of the things that we were talking about beforehand was most parents know, but some don't, so let's just clarify it for them, that almost every single social media site, and we're not going to talk just social media, we're going to talk even just as basic as cell phones and computers, right? But the age of which the average person, teenager, is 13 years old. Now, some parents hold on to that hard and fast, and others let their kids get on Facebook at a younger age. I don't think many of the kids these days care about being on Facebook, but there's, a few years ago, I know when my oldest wanted to be on Facebook, I let her be on it because it was to play the games. Farmville or whatever. I know she wanted to play the games. So we let her create an account, but we didn't let her add anybody. But it seems like she's on there now primarily just to kind of stalk people. As funny as that sounds, but she's not an active participant. Definitely the active participation seems to happen on apps and social media channels that they can hold in their hands. So things that are on their iPhones or their Droids. What was your rule of thumb when did your kids come to you before the age of 13 and said, "Hey mom, I'd like to be on such and such channel"?
Only my third. My two older boys didn't because they didn't have cell phones, so it just was mute. They didn't really want to go. We didn't have a computer that they had access to. They're now 17 and 18. So talk 4 or 5 years ago, that just wasn't even an option for them. They got their own phones when they started working at age 14 or 15. And at that point, they'd already kind of know the rules and knew the rules. And initially, I made sure I knew what they were doing and, we talked about stuff. But my third one, she wanted to be on social media at age, I think about 11. She wanted to get on Facebook. And I just felt that once she was on there, she didn't quite understand the socialization, how it worked. She thought people would get upset if she said something wrong, or she felt personally attacked. I think at some point she was afraid to turn on the computer by fear of what was going to pop up. And so we deleted that. She just wasn't ready. But I have my youngest is 10, and he came to me this summer wanting to be on Instagram because all his little buddy friends are on Instagram. And we've decided not to let him. There's been some in-person incidents just with, behavior with friends and, talking about each other and gossiping. And, we explained to him that if that happens in person,
Right.
You can apologize and take it back. But you do that on Instagram, not only you and your, 3 friends will know about it, but another 500 or more spectators can not only see it, they can forever hold on to it, but they can screenshot. So we told him no. I mean, and he doesn't have a phone, so, he would have to be on his iPad. He does do a lot of YouTube. And, we've set some guidelines on what he can watch and what he cannot watch. And he mainly does soccer on, watching funny soccer videos.
Right. And Minecraft, I know Minecraft tutorials are very popular with that age group. Let's stop real quick and go back to something that I think is a really valid point. And I think that is the mental maturity of this age group. There's very little. So they're just at this point trying to figure out how to relate to other individuals. And it is, you and I both know, because it's our world with social media, how quickly, just when it is just a written word, you can't hear connotation. You can't hear fluctuation in voice. You can't hear that you might read it one way that sounds like I'm being mean, and I was not being mean. I was maybe trying to be funny or sarcastic or witty, right? And you can, as an adult, we can sit there and go, all right, I know Kristen or I know Doreen, and this is probably what she meant by that, and I'm not going to get, but whereas a child, and that's what they are at 10 and 11, they're children, they don't understand that. They don't understand. They're coming from and that's what the beautiful thing about that age group is, that the old saying is like, you want truth, ask a kid, because they have no filters and they don't understand that people can read things different ways. So and I think that's an important thing that parents need to understand. My 10-year-old might be mature enough to go on to that particular site, and your 10-year-old may not.
Right.
I think parents need to look at the maturity of their child, but I still think that 10 is way too young for that.
I agree. And, before we got on the podcast, you and I were discussing that as my son is going into the 5th grade. And the big rumor at the school was that this past year, that 5th grade that just graduated was creating all sorts of problems. They brought phones to school. They were bullying each other through text messages, different apps on their phones. They were talking about teachers, PTA members, substitute teachers, other staff at the school. And it was just rampant, very, very badly, and I'm not 100% sure what they did to stop it or how they stopped it, but it was the biggest thing that happened in the school this past year, that the 5th grade class was online on their phones, gossiping and bullying. And, that's not a good thing to be happening in your school. And it's worrisome as a parent. My son going into that grade,
Mm-hmm.
I guess the one way to take care of it is to not have him have
Right.
a phone at school.
Right.
I mean, that ends it right there. I mean, he might have an iPad where he can access some of those apps on his phone if we let him. But it's not going to happen during the school. And that it wasn't just after school or at night on the weekend. It was actually real time in the classroom. Things were happening.
So what about now in our school district, because there's no funding, they have to bring their devices. They call it BYOD, bring your own device, right? And they sign a code of ethics or code of mannerisms, but you're still dealing with a bunch of kids that are let loose with far more power and access to things than they really need at that age. And that's a challenge in itself. I had I'm like, what happens to the kids whose parents can't afford that? What do they do? Which was actually how I combat it. Because one of the other challenges is if you're in that kind of a school district and you're where they have, because we just don't have enough school books, so they have to access these files and these lessons online, and that presents a challenge if you get to a point where you need to take or ground your kids from their devices. How do you do that? Because, my now 9th grader was like, well, I need it for school. And I'm like, well, you tell me. I said, I can't imagine every child in your school, their parents have the capability of going out and buying a $300 or $400 device so that I'm like, so what do those kids do? And of course, the answer is they do have devices or computers for them to have access to. So, schools have kind of put us in an awkward position where we have to combat that and say, no, you don't.
Right. Well, for us, it's the opposite. We are in a different kind of school system. I'm in a different state, and our school district decided to buy everybody a device, whether we wanted it or not. We couldn't bring our own device. And so they had a contract with Dell Computers. I'll tell you who it is. And every single high school child, and I happened to have 3 in the system, was giving a Dell Venue. And I think it was the first model of a Dell Venue. They stopped working within a week or 2. They wouldn't charge. I ended up having 3 Dell Venues sitting on my kitchen table that didn't work. They were borrowing each other's chargers. At one point, my 10th grader went to the school, asked for them to check it because it wouldn't charge. They took it without him wanting to. They took it on a Tuesday, and by Friday, he's not doing his homework. He doesn't have access to Google Drive because he's supposed to have it. The teachers now, because they have their device given to them, assume that you can access it. So I called the school. The school told me that, oh yeah, it's sitting here. They get picked up once a week, but since he brought it on Tuesday, it's going to sit here till Monday, and it'll take 3 weeks to return. I said, I don't think so. My son will be by today to come pick it back up, and we'll figure out a way to charge the thing. He ended up borrowing his sister's, but we battled through this. Plus, the week before school started is when they told us they would get the device, and I had to pay $50 a child just for the insurance.
Mm-hmm,
so I had a $150 school bill after buying school supplies that nobody told us about. So that's the flip side of, not bringing your own device. Every teacher now assuming you have it. And then when it breaks, they didn't have a system set up. They didn't even have a single loaner. I said, in this one high school with 1,600 students and 1,600 Dell venues, not a single loaner was bought.
That's crazy.
So what's happening is that, some of the school districts are getting ahead of themselves. They don't have a system set up.
Right.
And I'm very worried for my 5th grader who this coming year will be getting an iPad. This school issued iPad. And again, I have no idea what the school district has set up for, loaners, repairs. They haven't hired the right people, and they're going to break. I mean,
yeah.
They're going to break. Somebody's going to either break glass or break, an iPad. And the teachers are told to teach as if every child has one. And so, there's a lot of issues going on. And I'm not sure that, what you're dealing with, having to bring your own device, is any better or worse.
Right.
But we've had our own challenges this year. And, having 3 in high school with devices that don't work, but being expected to have them. Yeah,
and it doesn't matter whether they have. It goes back to the same thing. I think we're kind of veering off topic, but I think it's still a relevant conversation to have. Is that okay? What happens if you've got these underserved families that don't have computers at home? So again, that comes back to us. How did these kids get their work done? And I agree with you. We, as the state of North Carolina, have no money. We have tanked like you would not believe in the past 5 or 6 years as far as where the quality of our education is. And the largest thing is we have no money. So, but yeah, they, and the other thing too is they'll come home and we've got 5 of us, 2 of us, whom work from home and need our computers to work now. And then we've got a desktop, which of course nobody likes a desktop because they want to take their laptop and go someplace. So we have 5 people, and now I have to go buy 3 more laptops in order for them to be able to do their homework.
No, you stagger it. Don't you know
No, I know that. But the theory is...
I know. I'm kidding you. Because I've gone through the same thing where because we ended up with one venue that worked, they would take turns. I mean, it's not good. And, on top of that, now we're talking about usage in the classroom, usage in the schools. So now these kids are on there. One of the librarians told me that the biggest issue they have is when kids come in to get their stuff repaired is because they're full of porn.
No.
Yes. Almost every single kid that walks in there.
So wait.
Yeah.
So these are school issued devices that have no safety filters on them.
Somehow the kids know how to get around them. Oh, that's the biggest issue that they had this year because they were new. And this was in the middle school with iPads. Yes. My iPad doesn't work. Here you go. And that's what it was.
Wow.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised because they have access to it. That's the age.
Yeah.
But what I'm more surprised by is the fact that there's not some really good. So if you are a software monitoring company out there, we can send you some good business. So
yes,
hit us up on Twitter or send us an email. We've got some school districts that need your help. and I know none of it's ironclad, right? Like you said,
Right.
I mean, these kids are smart. They're smarter than us, even though we'll never tell them that.
Yeah.
They know how to get around things because they've had to for so long. But yeah, that's a huge problem.
It is. And again, our school district thought this all was a good idea without thinking ahead. So not only do they have these issues come up, they don't have support staff, because guess where the kids were going? They were bringing them to the librarian who was supposed to fix it. Now, librarian,
Bless her heart.
I know. So she would be calling in tech support and going, I don't know what to do with these. And she is, this is a friend of mine, a mom that works in the school. And she's like, I don't know, but they didn't set up tech support. This was for the iPads in the middle school. And at the high school, their tech support was, let's collect them for a week and then send them somewhere. To do this, I mean, this is a huge school district. I was just talking about one school with 1,600 students.
Yeah.
They did this to every single high school. They did not think this through at all. I don't know who's on the school board, but the whole idea is a great idea, but you should have really taken a year to set up all the rules, set up all the tech support, hire the right people, get every school, a point of, get a tech in there. I mean, it just was a big mess. And the rumor is that we're getting new Dell venues or some kind of computer that hopefully will work better. But there are so many issues. And for you and I that work in social media, I mean, I was predicting this. When I went to open house, I talked to some of the teachers and they're like, yeah, we really don't know what we're doing either. We've just been told that everything we teach has to relate back to, Google Docs. Everything was on Google Docs. Every video that they wanted the kids to watch, everything was on there. So, we want their kids to be tech savvy. We want them to be able to retrieve information. But yeah, how do you, turn it back around? How do you keep control of that as a parent? It's very, very, very hard.
So nobody would know this, but I'm telling you, we're totally going to have to change the topic or the title of this podcast because it's completely not where we were going, but that's okay because I'm getting ready to ask a different question. This is something I'm dealing with right now.
Okay.
How do you and your family, speaking of technology, I have pretty much put my foot down and, this year, and I said I created a family calendar, a Google family calendar, and added all of the family onto it. And I said, from now on, so now one of my days this summer is going to have to be teaching my girls how to use iCal or Google Calendar because I'm done. I mean, we've got the middle who will be in marching band this year, and my husband asked me last night. He goes, "Have you downloaded that music that the band conductor sent out that said that she needs to be practiced?" I said, "No, I'm not playing the trumpet. I've got no music to learn myself." It is. I said we've got two. So we've got two topics right here I want to talk about. One is getting your kids to do email, do air quotes, because this generation does not do email. However, they're dealing with a generation that does email, and the vast majority of the world does email, right? And that's how these teachers communicate is via email or through, we have I can't remember the name of the app now, but there's a message.
Edmodo?
Something like that, where the teachers can push out texts. Yeah. So that's one of the ways. But I noticed for the most part, it's either on their horribly antiquated school websites where you have to go through and click 5 times to get the one piece of information that you want for a homework assignment. So I want to talk about how to get your kids to do email. I've got some ideas, and then the calendars, because it's not my responsibility. It's like, do you guys have Crosby Scholars? No, you probably not. I think it's a North Carolina thing. Well, the two older ones were part of Crosby Scholars, and they both got dropped. They both got booted out because and I hated doing it this way, but I'm like, it's not my responsibility. I mean, I'm not casting them off into the grand, the big wide open sea, but the emails coming, they need to take some responsibility for reading those emails, looking at their calendar, and scheduling, okay, I need to go do 4 hours of volunteer time this month.
Right.
I need to go out. And then I've got another one I want to talk about because of something that happened in our family yesterday, which is the importance of teaching them how to make their own appointments. So let's go back to email, and you go.
Okay, email, I have the same issue, but for me, in my family, it seems to be male female thing. My daughter, I have 3 sons and 1 girl. The boys don't want to do email. They resist it. My oldest one's going off to college. He's going to college on August 1st, and we keep telling him every week, check your email. You need to talk to the finance office. What's going on with this. We almost missed the deadline for a scholarship because he wasn't checking his email. Now, school-wise, because we had those Dell venues, everything was done on Google Docs. They all learned the first 2 weeks of school last year, and every single class in the high school was spent on learning Google Calendar, Google Docs, so they know how. They got the education from the school system.
They all know how. They just don't want to do it.
Right. And they don't want to download it on their phone because, that's dumb on your phone. So, we keep sending texts to them, check your email, do this, do that. My daughter is very different. She is super organized, and I think part of that is a personality. Little bit OCD with, she's the only one who makes her bed. She's the only, she wants to get things done.
I need one of those.
I got 1 out of 4. I'm lucky, I guess.
0 out of 3.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So she is the one who will send herself emails. She's working with a running coach, and she's making draft emails. So at the end of the week, she can send out the email. She put it in draft mode and add something to it every day. And, she just wants to be organized. She wants to be a business person. She is going to be great at what she does later in life because she's learned these skills. The boys don't care. I think part of this is personality, part of it is generational, part of it is family, expectations. We're doing a lot in our family talking through text messages. We're having family text messages. Yeah. And that's how we do a lot of communication. All 3 of my kids are working this summer. They have different hours. The boys are bunking together because I booted one of them out because I needed an office. So the 2 17, 18-year-old are bunking together, but they work at different campgrounds, so they have different hours. One of them will ask me, is so-and-so bringing his friends home? I'm like, text him, text your brother. He's at work. I don't know. So try to give them more responsibility. I can't tell you how many times, they go in the kitchen and they go, oh, we're out of this. And I'm like, I don't eat it. You finish it, you text me. Every time I go to the grocery store, I text them.
We had this thing. Sydney and I had this thing this week. 2 of my girls love strawberry Pop-Tarts, right? Because Pop-Tarts are huge in nutrition. And Sydney hates them. So she opens up the cupboard and she goes, can you next time go buy something that's not strawberry Pop-Tarts? I'm like, well, what do you want? She goes, anything but. I'm like, okay, well, now you've left it quite open. So I said, or you can tell me exactly what you want and I'll get it because I don't need it.
Right. And we go through the same thing. So I will now give them a courtesy text. Mom is going to Costco or Walmart or wherever I'm going in the next hour. Let me know what you want. If you don't text me, you may not complain for the next 4 days. Right. So, but email doesn't work. Facebook messages. My husband and I do a lot through Facebook message because, the nature of the beast being on social media. But we do a lot of it through text messages because the kids now have phones.
And we do too.
Works.
And I've found, here's my tip for anyone struggling with email. I'm finding that this helps a little bit is once you kind of pick out who your kid's going to be getting the most emails from, mark them as a VIP. So like our golf coach for the oldest, that way when it comes through on their email, it has the little star next to it. So it kind of sticks out from all the other junk. I've also encouraged them to come up with a junk email so that then when they go and sign up for these sites, keep the, kdocus@gmail.com that's all the legit stuff. And then go get Kristen's junk at yahoo.com for when you're signing up for stuff. That way it doesn't infiltrate it. But I did find that once we pegged who were they were getting the most emails from during the year. Of course, I'm on it. My husband doesn't email them much, but if I get something, I know they're getting it, but I also will forward it to them so it kind of speaks out. And I unfortunately still am doing did you check your email?
Right.
It's
unavoidable.
It is unavoidable. It really is. The big thing that I'm having like I said, the calendar, we are going to sit down and, I mean, you have a family of 6, I've got a family of 5. That's a lot of calendars for a mom to manage. And I don't necessarily think that we should. They especially once they hit high school, they need to understand scheduling. You are involved. I got one that's involved in marching band, another one that's involved in golf. She's also got a job. Now you need to start using this calendar for your own sanity, so that when you get your schedule, she goes, "Oh, I put it in my notes." Don't put it in your notes. You need to put it in your calendar. I work from 11:30 to 7 today, 9:30 to 6 tomorrow. I said, I'm telling you, if you don't start doing it, you're gonna miss a shift somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or luckily she's not been late, but she's shown up early a couple of times because she thought in her head that her shift was 12 to 6 and it was really, or I'm sorry, she thought her shift was 11 to 6 and it was really 12 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that hour right there. So, and you just need to be able to reference it and for the own sanity too, of if I need to schedule a doctor's appointment, which happens, where am I going to go to look?
Right.
The calendar, right?
Yeah.
And if I see nothing there, and again, because of a busy family, I don't like spur of the moment, spontaneous, oh, I told you that I needed to go so and so. No, if it's not on my calendar, it does not exist in my world.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, I have 2 that are driving and they have access to a car. But like last week, I wanted to take one of the cars that they normally drive. I wanted to take it to a college tour with my third. And I caught him just in time because I didn't put it on the calendar. And he was going to work at 6:30 and I was leaving at 7 to go out of town. And he had the keys in his hand. I'm like, no, I need that car. So we just, but those are things that happen. And, it's important to set it up, have a system. But for us, mainly, we do Google Calendar. My boys, I think when the schedule comes out at work, they take a picture of it. And so they have it so they can reference back to it. They've worked around not having to do email and Google Calendar more than I thought they would, but they're doing a lot with their phone. I mean, It is all on their phone. And I think they would be lost if they lost their phone. But the boys like that better. They will take pictures of things. They will send me pictures of food. Can you buy this? Or, they're getting better, but it's like you have to train them because it's a whole different, my daughter will be like, can I have your phone? I need to put this and this on the list. I've got this list going on my phone, like a grocery list, and she'll actually put it in the list for me. Whereas the boys wouldn't know. They just text me.
Well, and I've tried using, gosh, I'm drawing a blank now, but there are several apps that are that are family calendars.
Yes.
And I've tried using that, but it's like I can't get them to embrace Google Calendars. How am I going to get them to embrace this app, which would be ideal? Right. Because, then I can just have one spot to look. So like I said, I did it last week. I created a family calendar, put everybody on it. And when everybody's home from camp, they're going to get a lesson. Here's how you use it. And I expect you to use it. And if I don't see it on this calendar, it does not exist in my world. Do not come crying to me if something gets missed or I double schedule you on something. Mm-hmm. It's just...
Right. Well, and I think the other thing for me this summer, from what I'm seeing with my kids, the fact that they're now seeing me in my office working and sitting with me sometimes, they're realizing how busy I am during the day when they're at school. They're not really realizing
out of sight, out of mind
what I'm doing. And I think there's a little bit more appreciation for what I do when I do stop working or when I help them make lunch or when I cook dinner, because I know I'm busy. They see me here sitting in my office at night working sometimes. And I think they realize that when they come home, the jobs that they have, they can just go home and be done. And, when you own a business, that is not the case.
No, it's not.
I'm getting actually a little bit more appreciation this summer than I thought I would with some of the things. So they're being a little bit better about asking ahead of time, can I take the car that day because I need to get a haircut, or, I'm going to be, can I take the car overnight? I'm going to go to so-and-so. Is it okay? Or do you need to drive me there? Is it okay if I take the car? So I'm getting a little bit more of that now that they see it in person versus when they're at school. I think they think I watch TV all day or something. So,
well, because you're home, what else would you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different. So yeah, I mean, things evolve anyway. As the kids grow and as you get them ready. I mean, the idea is that by the time they go off to college, that they're self-sufficient. They can make those appointments, because that was the second thing you had.
Yeah.
Calling and making appointments.
Yes.
It's a very scary thing to do. But
they need to know how to do it.
Yes, they do.
I mean, that's one of those, like, I came across an article, and that was one of the, things your kid needs to be able to do before they go to college. Well, I think they need to do it a little bit before then, too. We had an issue yesterday where the oldest was suffering from kidney failure, according to her. I, of course, knew that it was back pain from being on her feet all day and not wearing support in her shoes. But I made the comment to her. I said, well, I'll call and get you an appointment first thing tomorrow before you go to work. Excuse me. And she ended up, there were some heated exchange because she was convinced she was in kidney failure and didn't want to listen to my diagnosis. So she ended up making the appointment on her own. And I was like, good, you need to know how to do that. I don't know. In South Carolina, can they go by themselves?
To the doctor?
Mm-hmm.
I think if once they're 18.
Yeah. That's how it is too.
Right. My son turned 18 in November, and then he had a knee injury. And initially, I went with him and, do the MRI and some of those things. But actually, when he went to have to go get his MRI, I sent him with my credit card. I said, here's my credit card. I called them. They know you're coming. You're 18. I'm just going to drive. You can even drive yourself. So why would you sit there? So I sent him by himself to go get his MRI. I went with him to the doctor to get the reading of the MRI. And then physical therapy he did on his own. So yeah, he's slowly, been going. And then he went from having me go with him to the hairdresser to going on his own. And now he takes his younger brother, which is a big help to me. He'll take his 10-year-old brother and they get haircuts together. So, we've kind of shifted from, being independent, being dependent, to being on their own, to being being a help to me. So hopefully his 17-year-old brother will take on that role when he leaves. And, we'll take my 10-year-old to get his haircut. And, those are kind of the nice things that happen. But it's a shift that goes very slowly. And some of them, I see some kids are ready earlier than others.
Yeah.
And, you and I never got to talk about that, but I actually left my kids for the first time for 4 days by themselves this spring, all 4 of them. And that was a pretty big deal for 4 days.
Paul wasn't home either?
No, Paul and I went together to Costa Rica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, we tease our oldest, when you're 18, we're going to go party. Of course, we didn't go party.
You went running.
We went running. We went running in Costa Rica, and we left on a Friday morning, and we came home Monday night. They were in school on Friday and Monday, but they had to get themselves to school, get the youngest one to school. He went to friends' houses every day and spent the night at a friend's house, but they were on their own for food. They had the 3 dogs to take care of. They had to they did laundry. Both, 2 out of 3 did laundry. They had to get some food. They did it. And the biggest thing that I got out of it is that my 18-year-old said, I never knew how much work it would be to have 4 kids.
Oh, wow. See?
So, but they did it. I had signed medical releases. All my friends, all my neighbors, everybody knew where we were.
Right.
We were in contact, but it was really a big deal for them to do that. And it was a big deal for us. But that wasn't just a random, hey, let's go somewhere. This was a lot of working towards independence, a lot of planning.
A lot of talking.
But I think it made them feel really good that we trusted them. So that's something I want to throw out there. If you want your kids to mature, at some point you're going to have to go and trust.
Yeah.
You have to trust that you've taught them enough to, an accident could have happened or whatever. But, I knew that they could deal with the little things that were going to go wrong. And they have to, be resourceful. And they never called a friend. They never called a neighbor. They were fine. They all got along and survived. And they were very glad we were back. So.
Yeah. And it's funny how, because we've towed the water there with the oldest a little bit, by herself, not entrusting her. When we came down to the beach a few weeks ago, she had to work, and it saved us money on the dogs. We had somebody there taking care of the dogs. We paid one of the neighborhood kids to come and kind of fill in when she was at the office, but we told her. Well, actually, what we did is we said, if we find out that you've done anything, our next step will be to ship you off to Ohio with your grandparents for the rest of the summer. And it worked.
Right.
I mean, but I trust her. I do. And, I have not heard from the neighbors that there was something going on. They all knew. And, she tells me stories. I mean, there was a story that came out, a couple weeks ago of a kid whose parents left him for a 5-day cruise, and there was a lot of damage done. And I said, I don't know. I said, I can guarantee you the first thing is, I mean, my level of disappointment. I said, I don't know if I'd be devastated or disappointed or both, or all of or horribly angry. I said, but guarantee you'd be grounded for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And, just that breaks my heart that, I mean, his parents had to come home to that. And I was just like,
yeah. Yeah. But it's not something that all of a sudden, your kid's 17 and you decide to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's you work towards independence in a lot of different areas. I mean, I took every one of my children once they, before they started making money, to get their own checking account. So they have their own debit card. So they are in charge. When they go to the mall, they don't come to me and say, Mom, can I have $100? Which I see happen all the time. My
Absolutely.
kids tell me.
Absolutely.
My son did that for fun one day. He's like, can I have $100 bill? And I looked at him. He goes, well, my friend just did it with his dad and it worked. I'm like, you have a debit card? He goes, yeah. And I said, do you have any cash? He goes, I got $2 cash. He's like, that's a nice pretzel. Go have fun at the mall. I mean,
hey, I might be able to find you a coupon online.
Yeah, I'm not giving you my money to go spend at the mall. But once you have a debit card and it's their money that they've earned, they now can work with that. And it's worked wonders. I mean, I have one who saves all her money. I have one who spends all his money.
Yep.
And I've got one who is a little bit in between.
Yeah.
So, they have to learn. They have to make mistakes. Yep. And if it's their money that they earn, I'm not going to put any limitations on it because it's your money.
That's
I can say you should save some, and I could suggest you to save some, but I'm not going to say you can't spend it because you earned it. You went to work and earned that money. But I think getting that responsibility, they have a monthly bill. They each pay $30 for their own phone. They each have to buy their own phone. All those things help them grow up. And, they know that those are responsibilities. And so I think that really helps. There's probably a lot of 16, 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds that wouldn't be ready to be left alone with siblings. But I think that's very important to work towards that. And I have no hesitation about sending my oldest one off to college. And he's actually not even going to live in a dorm. He's going to live with a bunch of roommates. And I am not worried, not in that regard.
Well, and I think that's a good topic for another show, how to get your, preparing to send your kid off to college. Let's talk about doing that one soon. So I think we've come full circle here, completely off context, but that's okay. It was a good conversation that we started with. Basically, if you're going to put your kids on technology, you need to know their maturity level. You need to know them as a person, and we're ending it with the same thing. So, Doreen, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, what your website is, and your Twitter handle, etc. This is your chance to talk. I'll put all the links in the show notes as well, though.
Okay, well, it's very easy. I'm known everywhere as More in Media. It's a play on my last name, Morin, Morin, but then More in Media is 3 words, More in Media. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, Google+, everywhere. If you put in More in Media as one word, you'll find me.
And just so everybody knows, Doreen's got some great articles on the site on kids and technology and social media that you definitely should check out on the 10 to 20 site. And you can find that at 10to20.com. That's TENTOTWENTY.com. And of course, you can find us on Twitter at 10TO20. And again, thanks to Doreen. And for everybody listening, you remember, please subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you could leave us a rating and a review, that would be awesome, because it helps other parents with this age group find our podcast. And please share it as we are continuing to grow and educate parents on the 10 to 20 years. And as I always say, the time between the ages of 10 and 20 is an age and not a sentence. Thanks, Doreen.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys next week.